Hello, I'm going to do something a bit different from what I usually do. I'm going to review an entire season of a TV show. And you probably would have seen this coming anyway, so here it is, the Rugrats reboot. Now, over the past half decade, I've seen a lot of big complaints about the reboot, especially for its animation and voice direction. And I will say that is very fair criticism because Klasky Chupo was not meant for CGI. And when you look at those early video games of theirs, yikes. It was a big discrepancy from what CGI would be today. And even now, they can't really mesh together a lot of these characters into 3D form, with the exception of maybe Angelica or Susie or Chucky. But what's really shocking to me about this is how many people just actively dismiss the reboot after the first season. Like, people were saying they were just remaking the old stuff, and they were like, Bay's a lesbian? Why? And they were like, no Howard. I'm like, no, no Kira or Kimmy, and no Dill. He's even that useless guy was gone. But nope. I will say the reboot took a lot of time to find its footing. It needed its own identity, and it finally found it. I can't quite pinpoint an episode where it was. I think it might be Captain Susie. It might be Goodbye Reptar. It might be. Oh, it might have been Traditions. But I feel like the criticism was unfair because a lot of people who dislike the show were the ones who actively grew up with the cartoon from the 90s. And fine, I get it. Parents want to show them what they grew up with rather than just have something completely new. And I saw the fair criticism with the shorts that came out when they were just remaking stuff, even if it was just 2 minute intervals. And you know what? I understand they need to be experimental. They wanted to give nostalgia. They wanted to test the waters. But I wanted to give it time because I let the writing sink in. I let the some of the direction of the art take its toll, and it was worth it. I loved the cinemascope for the animation sequences. I loved a lot of the stuff with the adults, seeing them in the modern activities. Even Grandpa, they actually gave him more stuff to do instead of just sleeping. They gave him the hippie aspect. And I will say, I'm really, really happy that this reboot got a finale. The original Rugrats has a finale. As I said, it was the Christmas special. I made an essay on that 3 years ago. But I want to say I'm recording this 6 to maybe 7 weeks. Fuck that joke. Several weeks in advance for the 35th anniversary of the original franchise. And I want to say, I'm not really sure where the franchise is going to go at this point now that they've redone everything. I mean, if you compare it to a cartoon like Tom and Jerry, you just take the characters with pretty much no active personality, make them do slapsticks and wherever. That's as timeless as it could be, despite the caricatures. Then again, this reboot has a lot of new ethnicity, like Darsh and Naira are of Indian descent, and they made Susie the of African descent, the one of the babies, even though Kimmy of Asian descent. But what's really interesting to me about this is that a lot of the people who worked on the Rugrats reboot were original writers from the early 90s, as well as they had a few writers from Hey Arnold, a few writers from. Oh, yeah, the main showrunners from As Told by Ginger, Kate and Eric. They really took over well. They wanted the new direction, and I will say things could have been far worse than it actually was. Like, for all I know, they could have made Chaz gay if they were gonna just make him a single dad again. But nope, Kira's back. The only other gay character is Jonathan, Charlotte's assistant, although that's never ex- uh, it's barely even alluded to in the show. Although, what I find kind of interesting is that not only did this show get like the screw by the network, but when you look at the other shows, its predecessor, All Grown Up and As Told by Ginger, they were withheld over negative test screens, and they end up being found on foreign affiliates, and they were uploaded to YouTube in its early days over those 10-minute intervals, or the rather 3 parts that it originally had in the actual episodes. But it really took a long time for them to finally put season 3 out. It was greenlit in July of 4 years ago. Then in like the fall of 2023, they completed the scripts, and then a few months later, they made the storyboards for those episodes, and then they were supposed to be released. Yeah, they were supposed to release early, like late 2024 through early 2025, but intense delays just screw that over until it finally was released through foreign affiliates uh, this month. Yes, I watched all of it on Google Drive, and my finale, the video of the actual clip of the finale might still be up there once I put this out. But I believe it just wasn't, it was not given a fair chance, but it took advantage of what it had. It knew what the direction should be. It took some good second chances. I liked actually seeing the wedding. I liked actually getting development of Dill's physicality. Like, he can't grab, but now he can. He could sit upright, but it still didn't make him actually walk. I did, however, like seeing, seeing actual story arcs being serialized, like Chucky moving into the new house, and them actually developing with the new neighbors. And I was also really pleased with like the new kinds of locations, like how they set up the house. I really like those foam block mats, the puzzles, and like how they set up like the coffee shop is now a regularly appearing thing rather than just the final 2 seasons. I like seeing them at the preschool. It's nice that they're able to justify Angelica's absence in a bunch of these stories this way. I was also pretty happy with uh sorry. I was also pretty happy with how they're stylizing the animation sequences, like the CinemaScope imaginations, seeing them in those like medieval outfits or the winter outfits or the beach outfits. Those were really fun to see. Yeah, I was happy with the fairy tale specials. It was a really good throwback to like those straight to DVD movies. And oh yeah, that reminds me. I don't even think this final season is going to get a DVD release despite what the first 2 had, as well as the shorts. But I'm really proud to hit the 65 episode limit. It really, that was the what it planned for, and it actually fulfilled that instead of being screwed over with financial crises or overly negative death screenings. Like, this show was so close to being canceled for negativity, but I'm very proud that it was not. And for all that I know, there probably was a lot of other different directions going for it. Like, I understand one of my friends interviewed the co-creator saying that they want to do an adoption storyline kind of similar to Finsterella, but didn't quite go through. However, I was also glad that they omitted a character who was so annoying in the original show. His name was Harold. Let's just say he was everything about autistic characters that's portrayed incorrectly, even as a baby. But they replaced him with Begley, who's awesomely enough voiced by Greta Liesel. She was a great addition to the show. She technically did appear in the original show. She had a very interesting interview how she did like Reptar voices of Force before being voicing one of the neighbors alongside Tara Strong. Of course, returns as Dill. but I feel bad that Tara Strong was completely limited in actual material for her character. It was still crying and babbling, but no actual sentences this time. Yeah, I felt really bad for her. Shout out to my friend who saw her indirectly at the convention a while back. And yeah, I might as well talk about the voice acting. Uh, E.G., Nancy, Kath, Cheryl, Cree especially still have it. They couldn't track down Dione Kwan, or however I pronounce her name, for Kimmy. She retired, except she's been kind of regained her interest in voice acting again. So I do like Kimmy's new voice. Definitely not as much as the original, but I do like how they were accommodating for her new age. The adults, however, I'm mixed upon. I could tolerate Betty's and Stu's and Randy's. However, I don't really appreciate Dee Dee's new voice. It's too farcical. Like she's trying way too hard to be that funny thing. It's about the direction. Uh, Charlotte's voice. I'm mixed on because she really doesn't have that spunk that Tress MacNeille has. I understand she and Dan Castellaneta both declined the reboot. They really felt that it was best in the 90s. But Drew, oh man. Whatever direction that they give Timothy Simons, or just the fact that he's not meant for the children's media, he just was not the right person for this show. But I really liked I really like uh, Buster Up, Tony Hale as Chaz. It made perfect sense considering how neurotic he was in Arrested Development. I really appreciated that direction, and I'm. But I was still shocked with the celebs like Henry Winkler voicing Boris this time around. That I did not see coming, and he did okay, but I still I understand the voice director is Charlie Adler, who worked with the original series, doing other characters, but and directed late in the show. But I feel like he really is starting to get burnt out by like how he wasn't giving them the right emotions or timing to voice the stuff. I I understand it was a contractual obligation, but I I'm not sure who else was to blame for the CGI or who really is culpable for the new voice actors. I know I saw some other people get produced backlash for it, like Michael Bell. Um, Melanie Shartoff was originally part of the reboot, but she dropped for personal reasons. Phil Proctor sent backlash for like omitting Howard. Uh, However, I do find it just very interesting how they were trying to keep this franchise relevant because while the original episodes are products in the 90s, they still feel timeless for their attitude. Like a lot of people a lot of people haven't seen those kinds of weird inventions that Stu makes. They're a lot of people have outdated like that stupid doorbell robot or like those special robot toys, as in the ones without AI, or maybe even like the whole plot of the child psychology books and like the early versions of the websites. But they still held timeless because it really felt like you were compelling with the kids and the adults. Like all those kids' toys with the blocks and the balls and those other puzzles and the books that they were reading. It really felt you were still connected with them after all these years. And furthermore, I would say some of the plot lines are really nicely upgraded in the reboot. Like Jill goes out, she orders toys on the phone and food on the phone, and this one she orders it from an Alexa knockoff called Duffy, and then for some of the other ones like Weaning Tommy, he was just him saying he should stay on the bottle for a little longer. But in this one, he loses the bottle, recovers it thanks to his friends on the pirate thing, but decides to give it to his eventual brother. And a few other nice upgrades was that they actually include a Purim special. That's a great second chance. It was so well told. I really loved how great it was with the humor and like the metaphors. It didn't rely on gross out stuff. Oh yeah, that's the gross out stuff is prominent, but far less than I thought it would. I guess they really took the complaints to heart, but sometimes it is present and doesn't land. But oh well, they know that's not what the show is about anyway. Furthermore, I was really just impressed with like how well they were able to cram in less than 11 minutes per story. Like because so many of the things involve runners, like you can't really include a lot for or many of the characters, so they just do random stuff without an actual resolution. But a lot of times they're able to make them follow through with what they want to do. And I will also say that some of the redesigns are very interesting. Like Dee Dee's the only one wearing a skirt, and Lucy and Randy are redesigned very significantly, as is Minka. But I do like the upgrade. I do like the upgrade on Drew and Chaz's designs. They're a little bit more modern in their aesthetic, and I'll also take note in that a lot of the locations they are nicely reused, like the playground, the the backyards, the community center. No, that's the preschool. Sorry, uh, that restaurant that comes late in the show. That whole town aesthetic. That's really nice to see, and they even included some other rare occasions like the hockey rink. And I already mentioned how good it was that the Betty's Beans is a recurring thing rather than just something that happened very late into the show. That I was really happy to see. So, I will be reviewing the final season story by story in chronological order in a couple minutes, but I want to say I'm really wondering how this show is going to get traction for the better again, because 5 years of negativity has really done a big number on it, and you might see you might see a few posts saying that maybe I was too harsh on this, and they're like, I actually like this episode, or I'm actually I'm I managed that they I'm happy that they managed to get a second chance on this, and for all I know, that might happen with a few good people, a few YouTubers turning it around. I understand Cam, Quentin, Saberspark, Sean, they were not happy with it. But I'm just happy that there's going to be some new kind of legacy for the show now that the reboot's done, even if it's not fully accessible. There's going to be some other forums and communities talking about it, and I'll be happy to see where things lead off in the future. I'm I do think there probably might be more books or comics about the franchise that comes up later on, but I'm also taking note in that there might be another Klasky Chupo project in the works, because we can't get a Ginger reboot. We're definitely not getting a Rocket Power reboot. There could be a Wild Thornberries reboot if it's educational enough, and there's like a lot new nuance, especially if Tim Curry is on his last legs. However, I will be patient about what's to come in reviews and projects, because a lot of times we're just going to have to take what we have and take the time to understand why it matters, why it's a form of entertainment and art, and why we need to be accepting of why things can't be how they are. And this is why this might be my last year on YouTube, but I will be making posts every now and then for you guys. I am going to review the Reboot's final season momentarily, but I just hope you guys have been doing well for these past several years of connecting with me. You guys really are amazing, and I hope everything stays well with you and you are able to work on your own projects or your own videos and materials outside of the site to take care of your own real ventures and careers, because eventually I'm going to have a career and I'll be leaving this behind. It's just a thing of the past, but a lot of people are going to have nostalgia for it, and I'm still happy to be part of this community with my nearly 4,000 subscribers. I appreciate all this. Now we'll be on with the show, so be happy with what we have to review. Let's get started. Hey, I'm going to be discussing each of these episodes now, starting with the first season 3 story, A Tiger's Tale. I really liked how this tiger came about. It was like loose one. It kind of reminds you of the old endangerment thing, a little bit of homage to the Vacation where they're trying to see the tigers despite their parents' wishes. And I understand it's toned down a bit, so it's not like them being stupid. It's just a crazy set of mishaps. And I liked that subplot of Stu's barbecue thing. It was a very fun little throwback to the original show, and I was actually pretty impressed with the stylistics of the tiger itself. And looking back, I really like some of the old time jokes, like taking care of Dill, and I also liked how good Darsh and Nair were in the story, being a bit more enthusiastic than everyone. I also like the little visual of the color blindness of the tiger with those shots. And I like the little shots of them downtown, seeing the laundromat and seeing those apathetic clerks in the food truck. That was a good little gag, and it was just a nice little classic pet moment between Chami and Spike that I always like seeing. It's a really nice throwback. I'm really happy that a lot of these episodes really wanted to feel like the same old style but different in their own rights. A very decent watch, and a lot of the shots, once again, were really good. I like the binocular shot of the tiger, mechanisms of Stu's little barbecue invention, and the timing of shots and motions were nicely done. I will give this cartoon a 7 out of 10. Now, like some of these reviewers, I will give each cartoon a rating, and I will say a lot of this is going to be worth that rating as we go along, so let's continue with the next episodes. This is Grandchild of the Month. Basically, Angelica wants to be the titular child so she could get all the cookies and whatnot. And this is the final appearance of Begley. I really like that Southern belle of a Nana that he has. I like her design, and this episode was a little boring, but I really like that little runner of them doing art and then Dill squeezing it all out, and it was just a quick little gag, but it was just a few of the jokes are repeated in a very weird way, like them about to destroy the puzzle, but it just magically appears. It was fun on its own, but then they did that a second time and it kind of lost its charm. Although I did like seeing the other people, like Graham, Betty's aunt. Oh yeah, we even got the Richard Kynes character from Chucky Come Home. That I didn't really see coming, and I liked the little dynamic between Lou and Celeste when they're doing the piano together. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of visiting Aunt Miriam with the retirement home and like them being all adorable to them. It's a very cute story, but it lacks in like the jokes and the real nuances. And the timing of these jokes aren't really the best, like that puzzle thing. And I kind of knew what was coming with that, with the reveal it wasn't Angelica, but I will say I'm pretty happy with some of the designs of these characters. It's a cute little thing to see, and I'm liking that they're being experimental with these background characters in these new places. I like how well this retirement home is set up. I like some of these extra shots around the people. The directors know how to use their sorry, I need to rephrase that. They know how to use their advantage as well. So yeah, this was a okay cartoon. 6 out of 10. Now we're getting to a different cartoon that I liked, and it's called Bookworm. I really like this library thing that we're actually going to see Kimmy and Kira in their own story. We see them working at the library waiting for the titular Bookworm, the mascot, to help the kids read, tell them stories and whatnot. And I like the setting of the library. I liked the toys around there. I liked the decorations. It really felt like my old library. It was a very, very fun little throwback to our childhood. And I will say, it is a substantial step up from their preceding cartoon, Quiet Please, which was literally just Chaz being harassed by the librarian over a minor mistake of the book, and Chucky barely losing his library card. It was on his pants the whole time, and it was just derivative of their own imaginations, yet they already knew what they could believe in without books. But this one, we get a nice little thing where Phil was trying to let his own worm meet it, and then they meet the bookworm, and then they lose it along the way, and we see a lot of little gimmicks around for the parents and their stance on the library. The direction here is pretty good. I liked the little standard shot of the bookworm. It's a cute little design. I definitely feel like I would have grown up with that thing, and it was cute seeing how those books were, the animal sounds, and Banana sat in the sun while the apple ran to the garden. That's definitely a good take on a modern children's book. Happy this was the story with Kira and Kimmy and no Chaz. They wanted to give them their own dynamics. She's a very responsible adult. Kimmy's very happy to help her, and I like that they gave her more of a character than just being like Tommy. It was a bit more of a nice expansion upon her. I like how they were just scrambling through the library books to find the worm, how they were climbing the shelves. I remember climbing all that. It's another bit of nostalgic trait with modern takes, and I'm still really happy that they were able to capitalize on an old story and make it a lot more feasible. It's a nice episode, and I hope you guys are happy when you see some of these gags. Can't really think of it off the top of my head right now, but there were a couple throwaway lines from Betty at the beginning that made me laugh, and the direction here is really good, especially at the end with how they're showing the point of view shots. It was a very decent story. I'd give it a very solid 7. Now we're into an episode that I indeed really enjoyed. This one is what I like to call the cookie test. Basically, now that Chaz and Kira moved into a new house, Kimmy and Chucky are going to deal with ground rules. Like, Angelica introduces it to them once Kimmy's sharing a plate of cookies, and based on how Chucky took the oatmeal raisin cookie, Kimmy gets chocolate chip. That means Kimmy gets the upper hand, especially for what room that she picks. And eventually, Angelica gaslights them that once they make their choices, it's basically final, especially given how their parents are dealing with everything. And this is especially comes into Chucky's fear when he sees the clown room. If you know the lore, then you know. And when the clowns turn alive in his nightmare, it's like that Terrifier thing, and like stop motion, and then they're all dancing around him, all that eerie music, and then he turns into a clown himself. It's pretty spooky, and it does remind me of these older days, how they're putting like the modern references and putting it in its own Rugrat twist. That's crazy. And we get it twice with Kimmy's side when Kimmy goes into the bird room. She sees a couple of them extra ones on the window. She waves to them, but then suddenly an entire flock of them flutters around her in her dream, swarming her, including one of the Angelica birds, like the ones that we saw in the first cartoon of the series. And that freaks her out like it did Chucky, and they realize that maybe we don't have to make these choices right away. We could do things together, and eventually they swap the rooms. They wait. They overhear their parents wondering where they should place all the stuff, and they have a similar agreement, like putting the piano in the other room rather than the living room where the couch would be, and they nicely work it out. I really like how they set up their new house. It's bigger. It kind of feels like the late 90s with that aesthetic of the walls, but I will say that Hitchcock reference was easily the best part of the episode. It really was quite a throwback to how scary the old series wanted to be, and I was pretty happy to see another Kimmy episode where she has a lot of insecurities, anxieties similar to Chucky's, but a bit more nuanced rather than exaggerated for the sake of cartoons. So, yes, I really enjoyed this episode. You probably will get a kick out of this one as well. A solid 8 out of 10. And you probably will be seeing this on Reddit or TikTok or wherever where they're posting how the chaos is. Mudville. I will say this is certainly the weakest episode of the season. Yeah, in this story, it's just them making up these random games as they play, and a weird subplot of them. The mom's trying to share in each other's activities, but Dee Dee's just causing a bunch of problems. It's so infantile and not in the way that the babies are known to be happy about. It's just so tired. It's not really original comparison to what we other seen. Darsh doesn't even blend that much in a way that he stands out. And while I do like some of the good camera shots, like at the sand trap or how they're going under the tables and whatnot, I just didn't really have a good time with this story. And especially that mom thing, it really dragged out. It reminded me of the time when Taffy was causing so many problems for the cheerleaders. And it's like they just decided to put all these games in a blender, and it was just a real mess. Even messier than the mud that they make in this episode. So, yeah, I really didn't like this one. This was bad. A 3 out of 10, and I just didn't really know where they wanted to take this one. It's certainly filler, and I'm ready to move on to the next one. This one's called Stepping Stones. This is another one that I was not too favorable for. This was a very slow one. I'll just say 4 out of 10 right out of the gate. And the thing is, it really fumbled its execution. It wanted to have a story about Angelica acting more mature towards Naira, and that could work. That could really help her behavior despite all odds amidst her family and community. However, Darsh was just being really annoying throughout this whole time without actually understanding Angelica's emotions or any real care for her. And Naira was honestly just being all patronizing towards her without actually accepting the fact that she wanted to be like her. Well, I do like a couple of scenes like them at the coffee shop where they get their orders. She's seeing how insignificant she really is towards everyone, and that little family photo, that was a little bit of a good joke, but I really just did not care for the direction of this one. It had like a really inconsistent pace, and it didn't, and that little subplot of them buying those animals and trying to treat it that way didn't really help things. I will say I do really think Naira's grown on me as being the oldest Rugrat now. She's just going to be another good leader for them. It's a nice little change of the dynamics, but otherwise I don't really have much to say about this one. I was mostly bored for this. Now let's move on to an episode that really, really hit me in the feels for what the show was meant to be. That being Scooped. Now this episode was really cool. This was about Susie's paternal grandfather reading her and the other kids a big book that he won an award for. It's about this boy who goes to the ice cream mountain, a throwback to an original cartoon from the show, and divorced to eat every bite. And it's really a fun time seeing everyone in the imagination sequence help Robbie in their big endeavors to share the fun. And Stu gets to join in the fun because the book is 3 decades old in universe. It looks much newer than that, but I will say it definitely does hit me in the feels for what the show originally wanted to be. Seeing a good screen time for Susie and her new side of the family. There were some pretty good gags with the penguin and just seeing those witty remarks as they were trying to find the ice cream. I really love the cinematography with those imagination shots as they're traveling for it, and Stu was really funny with how much the book hit home for him. And the resolution was definitely worth it. They made their own ice cream mountain, everyone got their scoop, and that drawing that was made of Randy and Susie was especially adorable. It was definitely a great throwback to the show. In fact, I'd argue it's more like season 3 of the original. They really had those great family and friend dynamics that really hit hard. I will also say I was impressed with how well they designed that story. It's definitely something that I would have seen in the 90s. It kind of reminds me of the Mr. M Munching Mouth book with that mountain of mashed potatoes, or yes, that's what it was. There was meadow of meatballs, and then it ended up with a mini bowl of mac and cheese. I definitely do have great feelings about this episode, and you probably will really have a great time when you see the magic that is this one. Yeah, you'll see the knight, the kangaroo, and penguin, and astronaut, and more trying to get the ice cream with them. It was a very fun tale, and you will have a great time. 9 out of 10 for sure. You know what? 10 out of 10. It was epic. So, this next one is called Class Pet, and it's another preschool episode. In this one, Kimmy's tasked with taking care of the class lizard, and Chucky, surprisingly, is attached to it, but things go awry when the lizard breaks loose in the house. Especially problematic as they're finishing setting up their moving stuff. This one was another good responsibility episode, and I was really happy with the outcomes. One of my favorite moments was Bean Good Jar. Kimmy's is pretty much full, while Angelica has 2, and she sulks in embarrassment over it. And it was a great subversion. You think Chucky gets scared, but nope, he's immediately attached to it, and the only anxiety that they both get is when it comes out of their cage. I like the little throwback to Paris where we see a miniature Fifi, and then eventually they dress it up in the French clothing. I will say, I like that 1972 t-shirt of Grandpa's, Plum Corduroy. I kind of do feel like I would have listened to the band. It somehow reminds me of The Who. And as for the setting, I really like the exteriors of the house that we're seeing again. How they're going all over the new rooms to expose us to what they're going to live like. The chaos of the lizard going through the houses. A nice little fun shot to see, and I really like how they're giving Kimmy these actual insecurities as a character. It makes her more compelling, and I'm pretty happy with the dynamics that Chaz and Kira are having as they're getting through to them. It's a good tale of responsibility, and you will find yourself connecting with it. 8 out of 10. Now here's an episode that you probably have been anticipating since the beginning. Desert Trip. In this double-length special, the kids go on this titular venture, allegedly going to see their donor, the twins' donor, Howard, whose last name in this version is Tucker. I will say, in the original series, Howard never really resonated with me. I understand they wanted to subvert gender norms in the original by Betty being buff and muscular and Howard being all timid and weak and doing all the chores that she would do. He just didn't really resonate with me. Now, nothing against Phil Proctor either. He did a fine job voicing the character in the original show, and I found his performance charming. I understand that the writers had a tough time figuring out what to do with him in the reboot, and the showrunners eventually overhauled and said, I understand that these gender norms are changing. Why don't we just make Betty LGBT so that we're being in the new age? A lot of people did not like this initially. They thought it was woke, and I really don't disagree with this decision, but I felt like they could have benefited from Howard being a very occasional character, like once per season. And even though he wasn't that much of a character, he was timid like Chaz, I feel like they probably could have fleshed him out to just be a local friend as well. So, in this story, they're going on an RV, a little throwback to RV Having Funya, and kind of touch Spring Showdown with their ventures. And they wreak some havoc in these places, but the gags are honestly really timid in this one, especially World's Largest Gumball. There are so many shots that are poorly timed of the gumball actually going to hit the car, that the setup is made, but the payoff does not land in the humor that it intends to be. Yeah, the gags here aren't really the best, but I do appreciate the twins getting their screen time in this one, especially who is this Howard? Will we like them? Could it be the alien? And after they watch the final Eclipse special with their parents, they have reason to believe that it is an alien, and eventually they have the dream, as the dads are all looking up at the shooting stars, that they're visited by this alien, and it's a very weird sequence, even for this show, but I really like how this alien appears, and it is indeed in the new Howard's voice, and it has a very friendly interaction with them. It's like, we're really happy to see you. This is our alien world. It's not too different from yours. We have our similar communications, and it actually has a pretty funny fart joke of all things. Here's our remote. Oh, wrong one. Haha, here we go. And they go into the flying saucer, traveling all over. It's a beautiful time. And eventually the twins come out of the spaceship, out of their imagination. They're like, yeah, we're ready to meet Howard. So at the end, he does show up to give them their special lemon treats. And I admit his design is off, like I kind of anticipated from the beginning anyway. But he has a good interaction with Betty, thanking her for staying in contact, and the twins are happy with the food, as are the other kids for seeing him. It was a cute time seeing them interact, and that Howard still matters to them in a way. Darsh a bit of screen time with his spunky attitude. That was a little fun thing to see. And the settings, once again, were really good. Seeing Area 54. I guess they didn't want copyright on that one. But I will say this was a solid 7 out of 10. It could have been a bit better with giving actual Howard more screen time. But I do understand how this is a very first to talk about donors instead of divorced fathers. This was a very new direction that I was rather keen on seeing anyway. They did a neat job. Alright, here's a rather interesting one. Wild Doll. Basically, Charlotte gets a book on better parenting called Time Out, and when Jellica acts up and tells her parents that Cynthia told her to do those things, they put her in time out, but that doesn't work because she fixes the timer and does whatever else she wants in her room. And then eventually, when the babies come over to help regulate her, they have this sequence where Cynthia comes alive, like Megan, or whatever that, Annabelle, or whatever those creepy doll movies are, and then it goes berserk. She writes time out on the wall. She starts leaving more stuff everywhere, acting as her own person, and then it's a very interesting art sequence that they're tinting it in a warm color. It's like a pinkish orange, and it's a very weird direction that kind of works. Like seeing that creepy doll come to life in a way that has that horror aspect that Rugrats was initially known for, and Although I did not like that weird runner of the smart refrigerator acting up on Drew, and Timothy Simon still cannot voice act for the life of him. It's a weird short, but I say it's decent for what it is, for another disciplining Angelica story, and it's definitely better than some of the other ones that they had to offer in the original show. But for all it's worth, there were some pretty decent gags how they were driving the cars and everything, and just the timing of when Cynthia was acting out. I'd say it was worth my time anyway. You probably will be enamored by this a little bit as well. 7 out of 10. Now let's move on to Pest Plant. Tommy is jealous of Dill, and then eventually Kimmy brings over this Venus flytrap, and then he casually wishes that the plant would take over. And it's kind of a recreation of Dill Saver, and a lot of it is okay. I do appreciate the difference of Dill physically changed and actually understanding this stuff, and therefore wooing his parents. And there's a subplot in this episode where Chaz and Kira introduce the gay neurosis to the other families. It's a very cool subplot. I kind of liked it a bit more than what we actually have for the main story, and I will say I do appreciate the dynamic of Tommy and Dill on this one, being a foil of such. It was a very interesting imagination sequence where they're going to Florida with all the plant stuff. I really like seeing them in those beach clothes, and then seeing them rescue Dill and all that stuff. Although, it's kind of weird that Kimmy was omitted from that, although it makes sense in hindsight, given her maturity and whatever. I don't really have too much else to say this one. I like the art for the imagination sequences, but I did not like that ending punchline. Not going to show it to you for sake of avoiding grossness, but that was a cool thing with the actual Venus flytrap of it being all venomous and whatever. But honestly, I think we might as well have an adult section alone of them arguing about the game, because I think that needed more screen time than what we actually have. 5 out of 10. I really did not have a lot to say about Forest Friends. A solid 4 out of 10. It's just derivative of Angelica's twin. And it feels so weird that Susie would be embarrassed to be caught playing with Angelica. They'd had great dynamics, especially in stuff like Great Minds Think Alike, the telekinesis stuff. I don't understand why she'd be this low. It really is a derivative story. Didn't really think much of it, and that gag of Charlotte trying that spicy food does not land, especially with this animation. They could not direct it at all. So, I have nothing to say about this one. I was that bored. Now, Castle Guy is a cartoon that I actually liked. They returned to Chucky's old house where they were exploring what else was around, and they find the titular being in their basement. And I have to say, I like seeing them in the medieval attire. It was a really fun watch to see them. The design of the Castle Guy, it's creepy, but in a way that actually really is charming. It kind of reminds me of the characters in Onward, and I was pretty happy with how cute their dynamic was. And I like the little stuff in the background, like the little Reptar toys. Another thing that I liked is just they gave it a new dynamic being Darsh's house, like how they've redesigned all this stuff. It's good continuity. Yeah, including how the dad was fixing the garden and whatever. It was a nice little turn of events. I was pretty happy with how well they were making this continuity. Hopefully you're going to like the continuity that this has too. I was pretty happy with the timing of the dialogue between all the characters. They knew how to make the story more cohesive and digestible. This is a solid 8 out of 10. I was pretty happy with the dark atmosphere. It wasn't trying to pull punches. It knew how it wanted to tell one of these stories. You thought there was a fear around you, but there ultimately wasn't after confronting it, and you felt good that you did. Time for another 8 out of 10 episode, Tricycle Kid. This one feels definitely like a late season 2 or season 3 episode. Basically, they're trying to warn each other of this kid who's selling them all these toys to do their tasks, like this fake shovel in the sand or these other little gadgets, and feels like those kind of activities that those kids of the day would really love doing. It's satirizing all the black marketing, and they were really clever in how they did this one. And this was the final appearance of Boris and Mink in the show. I do really like how they gave these background characters more screen time, such as Pierce. It was a nice little day in the limelight story. I also had a fun time listening to the characters. I really like seeing all those huddle shots in the sand. I also was pretty happy to give Boris and Mika a little nice send-off. And that was a very interesting subplot with the Carlo or Darlo thing with the blintzes. I also was pretty happy with that design of the Tricycle Kid. It does remind me of all those books, like that blue hair and that face. It's like a little mini man. It was pretty cute. I also like how they put Dylan in the story. He's digging around. Yeah, he's finally able to stand up straight. I still feel bad for Tara Strong because she's still not given actual dialogue. She might have had a lot of fun in the late 90s and 2000s, but this one, it's barely even work. Simply Simon. This was good, but still very weird. We learn that Simon isn't actually Angelica's step-cousin. It's actually her uncle, as it's Judith's, Charlotte Mother's, fourth husband's son. And why did they make him look so much like Drew? They were really lazy in creating a new design in that. But anyway, they bring Simon home, and he starts causing chaos, and blames Angelica for it. It's kind of a retelling of one of the other episodes. Fluffy moves in, and the main difference here is that they actually go to the preschool, and there's more havoc to wreak, so they do take advantage of that setting. But the thing that's always going to stick with me is that AI-like design where Drew was pouring the milk onto his mouth, and then Charlotte with the egg eyes. I did not see that one coming. Actually, who could have seen it coming? And, okay, they go to the preschool. He greets himself, try to be all charismatic with his persona and whatever. Oh, I made a mistake. This is Begley's final appearance, not a Grandchild of the Month. Okay, so there's a rope atop. Eventually, there's this rope with a bucket up top. They pull a bait and switch. And despite how it seems, Angelica's going to be dead center for it. Simon ends up being the one drenched, but Angelica pulls the rope, so everyone thinks she's in the wrong for it. But Simon said he likes seeing all the community here. It's a lot of chaos, but it's worth his time. Again, this is a very weird story. I do like how Kimmy's going to be another foil to them, but this feels like a weird satire of Charlotte, how her family is with that breadwinner aspect. It's so bizarre. I really wonder why they wanted to satirize it that hard for the adults. It doesn't always land, but sometimes it comes back around to being funny. But now this is a remake that we've all been waiting for. New Year on Ice. And this is a really special one. So, at the morning of New Year's Day, I presume this was supposed to be released in 2025, Kira gives the family tickets to the Reptar on Ice show, and this is really special because she wants this to be their first event as a new family, even though the wedding is a bit later. But Kimmy and Chucky are so excited for this. They really want to see Reptar together, and I really like the Japanese bags that they're getting as the gifts. It's showing that they're really embracing the culture. We see the ice stadium, and it looks really cool. I love those posters of Reptar, and I love how they kept the continuity with Darsh babbling as his family's singing the song. That was a really nice detail that they kept intact. They go over to the studio. They're locked in a playpen once again. They love those foam shape blocks for the floor. And it's those two apathetic teenagers entertaining them again as the pre-show before the real deal. We see Reptar and his mama. It's very cool. Another neat throwback to happen. I really love the dialogue that the announcer's given. They had a lot of time and it's Robo Snail. Another good throwback to Rugrats in Paris. It was a really fun time. They put great animation to the sets. And then the whole other villain that comes around, that other evil robot, that was really a design that they went so hard on. And then Kimmy actually joins in on the baby's chaos. Despite her maturity, they go into the locker room to stop the villain, even though they were getting undressed and whatever. I really like how they were able to do this. They were pulling it off pretty hard. And that little intimacy of Kimmy and Chucky, like, we're going to be family, I want to look after you. But I'm sure you could do this. So he grabs that whole rope to tie up the villain. And they're like, wow, those actors are really good. They almost look like they're kids. And then Chaz notices it, and then Kira's the one who has to point it out, and they go on over and pick them all up. It was a very fun little event. I understand they watered it down to make it look less dangerous than they did in the 1992 special, but I'd say it was worth our time seeing all the ventures. I really love the songs. I was happy with the end when they were having the miso soup after the party. It was a nice little family celebration. How the babies were eating it too. It was nice seeing Kira and Kimmy's Japanese culture presented well in the episode. I was also really happy with how those little runners, not Ava and Angelica, arguing about the show, and then Randy and Stu watching something else on their tablet. Man, it was a good little modern update to the episode. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with this one. I'm sure you guys would too. So 9 out of 10 for sure. I really hope this episode gets good traction when it posts elsewhere. We're getting into the home stretch now. We're going into Flower Girl. This is a very interesting episode. Kimmy and Angelica are arguing about who's going to be the Flower Girl to Chaz and Kira's wedding. Another full circle to Rugrats in Paris. But this time it's been chosen as Kimmy, of course, since she's Kira's daughter. Angelica is not having it. She's getting all so petulant about this. She brings her own flower dress, trying to bring love to whomever couple really wants it. Goes so far as to put this act into the local talent show where Grandfather Pickles and Celeste are doing their musical act together, and then she mistakenly believes that they are getting married, and when the big time comes, she tries to put them on the spot, and eventually, amidst all odds, they think maybe they are meant to be. It was a very weird episode. I feel like the plot really changed halfway, but I feel like I do like Celeste and Grandpa Lou's dynamic, especially considering in the original version he really didn't have that many friends. He was just a grumpy old man. But I do appreciate how they put more culture into the show, especially with Kimmy and that kimono. She looked great in it. I also really liked this is pretty much Fluffy's last episode, and it was another Spike scene, a nice little throwback, and I was also, oh yeah, we even saw a little cameo by Fifi once again. So it is another full circle, and I liked it for what it is. It could have had better pacing and direction. Art direction was great, but like the timing of the story, not as good as I wanted it to be, but I liked what we saw. 7 out of 10. Flight of the Finster. This is a very odd episode, even more odd than the previous one. This is, you know how Chucky was the big brother to Kimmy in the original series? Now the opposite is happening. Basically, they're going to a fair, and they hope to ride the airplanes, but Chucky's once again scared to go despite all the training, and Kimmy tries her best to accommodate Chucky however she can. Eventually, she starts to help handicap all the carnival games to make it as easy as possible for him, but he ends up getting the worst consolation prize, and then he Eventually, he starts to question, why is this happening to me? She's helping me, and all I'm getting is this. And eventually, they realize you're going to have to face this anyway. You're just going to have to go right for it. Get on the horse, or in this case, the plane. Eventually, they do so, and they're a bit anxious, but it all works out. I still not quite used to Kimmy being older. I understand they wanted to give her her own identity, but all this was just, I feel like it was really watered down in comparison to a lot of the other stuff, but I really like seeing the nostalgia of the carnival as well as all the other characters, Graham, Nana, and a few others. So yeah, I'd give it a solid 6 out of 10. The toy box. This was a delight. It was a great modern take on a classic throwback. Basically, Stu invents a new toy box that talks to them. It sorts their toys, puts them away, and it's a very kooky scenario that definitely feels like something that they would have done in season 2 of the original. And basically, when they start putting some of their toys away with reluctance, they end up being sucked into the box, especially Tommy and Chucky, who then turn into dolls, very akin to that of the actual merchandise that they sold in the 90s. They're still dolls, and everyone's trying to help accommodate them, and all the other toys are coming to life, trying to be like, be one of us, you're one of us now. And the other kids are, they're like, your toys, don't you want to be that way? But they're like, I can't really do anything. But then all the other toys start coming. They're like, it's all throwbacks, like Night of the Narwhal, the Crocky, and then the snake, and then the sippy cup. It's all crazy what they're doing, how they're all coming to life. Oh, the fairy doll too. They're all really trying to be all kooky. It definitely feels so surreal. It reminds me of In the Dreamtime as well, with all the animals and people coming to life and communicating. And they also gave some pretty good quips to the cast. I also was pretty amazed with the design of the toy box itself. It's definitely something that I would have seen growing up, and not to mention, I was pretty impressed with how well this episode was paced. They knew what the original was about, and they wanted to upgrade it as strongly as possible. And I was just pretty impressed with how well they delivered. It's a beautifully fun episode. It was a lot of snark, a lot of good wit. You probably will have a great time with this one. It hits so well. 9 out of 10. Trust me, you will be amused. The Pit was another decent episode. In Jake's final appearance, they go to the restaurant that Trish opened to help promote it by doing a live food show on the internet. And at the same time, the babies are trying to make their own food. And in doing so, Phil ends up falling into the garbage can, which he calls the pit, and they do whatever they can to get him out while they make their own food. And I really like their chef designs. They look really adorable in it, and I was also pretty happy with some of the dialogue that they were being given, like, the pit's not so bad, and then just Phil just chilling all around, and we get the final mouth cam of the franchise thus far. I was also pretty happy with like the art direction of that whole village, like all the lights and the trees. I really like seeing these in there in that new cooking vicinity, and I really like that recipe that they were doing with all the chips, the lettuce, and all the spices. And I really like another episode where Phil and Will are separated. They're just trying to be their own things, and the cute little thing with the porcupine was especially funny, with how they were trying to connect it when it was really just one of those spiky balls. They thought the porcupine was going to complete their recipe, and once they get out, they enjoy their food together. Those tacos look great. I'm really glad I'm going to eat those more often because they're just a tasty meal, and I was also pretty happy to see how the adults were engaging in the situation. They given good dialogue. I liked how Dee Dee was encouraged Trish to be with her brother as a good partner for this. I was happy. This was worth a 7 out of 10 for sure. Oh, sorry. This was worth an 8 out of 10 for sure. Now we have the dinner guest. Basically, the first time ever, we're going to Susie's house, and they're having a special dinner, but they don't know who the guest is. It's all a mystery that they're playing. Everyone's dressed up in weird clothes because they're not sure what the mystery is. It was their personal guest. And as for the kids, they're going around trying to follow the mystery themselves in their pajamas, and in doing so, they end up finding a skeleton from Randy's science class. Ultimately, is part of that big reveal, and they keep trying to help it however they can. They think it needs their guidance and to be their friend, so they do whatever they can to dress it up and talk with it. And then Foster comes along and keeps surprising everyone with the antics. Yeah, Foster keeps stealing the bones off the skeleton like dogs would. The adults are still befuddled on what their mystery really is, and amidst all the chaos of the skeleton reappearing throughout the rooms, it goes to show that they end up having a great time with it after all, as the skeleton comes dancing down the stairs with those star glasses from Forest Friends, and they were really surprised about taking it in after all as the ultimate ending. This was cute. I had a good time with it. I was also really happy with the dynamics that the kids were doing. I'm also pretty fond of the lighting that they put. That yellow really matches well with Susie's house. And I was also pretty happy that Randy and Lucy got good screen time for their degrees of science and doctorate. They really want to invite their friends into their world. They were really happy to be part of this limelight, and I had a good time watching them go through all the chaos of the skeleton. And pacing, once again, isn't quite the best, but I was happy with what I saw in the dynamics. I wish we would have had Kira and Kimmy, though. They probably could have added some real goodness. Naira wasn't there, and neither was Angelica, so maybe that does check out. 7 out of 10. Now we're into our penultimate cartoon, The Bucket List. This was pretty mediocre, has a lot of pacing issues despite a good premise. It starts off with them looking at the clouds, and then Naira talks with her parents about her preschool. She's really happy about what she's learning, and then eventually she learns Darsh is going to the preschool as well, and then eventually he has the sudden realization, I want to complete my list before going to the school, but then you realize you kind of know what the punchline is coming a mile away, that he's actually not going for another year. And then they start doing all these mundane things, climbing mountains and going to all these places. It has a very, very weird pacing issue. We see the teacher again. I do like her attitude, but she isn't really that interesting. And Naira's dialogue isn't very naturalistic here. It's very crudely put together of an episode, but I do like some of the dialogue that the kids are having. I do like the shots of them doing that 6-point snowflake or star when they're looking up the clouds. But that's pretty much all the goodness that I have to say about this. It's most of the stuff we've seen before, where they literally could have been just doing anything while they were climbing and whatever. I feel like maybe it could have just been another one where they actually visit the preschool and do the stuff together with the other kids. And then maybe they go a little bit earlier into the preschool, but that's just me. Solid 5 out of 10. But we're getting into what we really waited for, and I'm sure you guys are ready too. So here it is, the series finale, Big Cake Day. They've already had the rule of 3, Klasky Chupo, with their wedding finales, Duckman, Rocket Power, and As Told by Ginger. But you're thinking, didn't the original Rugrats end with the wedding? No, I doubt that Rugrats in Paris was originally intended to be the show's official finale, because they really wanted to explore more of the cultural dynamics of Japan. But I will say, I was pretty happy that this was the finale of this show, and I was pretty happy with what I got. So, as Chaz and Kira are preparing for their wedding, a lot of chaos goes around. Kira's parents, Yoshinori and Saki, are struggling to come from Japan to California. Or at least that's what we think it is, given that's where the original series was. Linda comes by and brings her dog Archie, once again treating him like a real human. And all the other adults are dressed in formal clothes, despite how it's going to be semi-formal with the Japanese culture. And I just say I do like the dichotomy of the clothes. It's pretty cute. Although I do like them wearing the kimonos in the original one, I'm pretty happy seeing the dichotomies to represent their characters, given how prissy Angelica is. I really like Phil and Lil's matching attires, and Tommy and Dill's tuxedos are pretty cute too. Kimmy's once again in her kimono, and I like how Darsh and Ira are taking part of the story too. So eventually a toy comes by and they start playing with it despite their parents' wishes, and eventually one of the balls flies into Chaz and he knocks the special Japanese vase over and it breaks. Eventually the kids realize how much of a disaster this is to the wedding given its cultural value, and they realize they need to fix it, and to do so they gotta go to Japan to find a new one, or at the very least find a way to put all the pieces back together. So in their final fantasy sequence, they go off into this Japanese world and they're guided by these animals to find these pieces, while Angelica is reluctant to do so, especially after losing the Flower Girl opportunity. But she's saying you have to help them, but you can't be outright exposition. So she decides to indirectly guide them, being all passive, and to help them set everything right. And in the meantime, the adults are decorating the wedding, and they're being all anxious about everything going wrong, whether it's the decorations and the parents still not arriving. But it's Darsh's parents who are taking care of everything. I like that they actually gave them the skill of the decorators, because I want to see what their main spiel was. It was a very nice way to see Linda and Dee Dee arguing. Those red hairs and glasses is quite something. And once again, Linda's voiced by Eliza Thornberry's VA, Lacey Chabert. So that was really a nice little throwback as well. And once again, seeing the Japanese fantasy was pretty cool with their kimonos, as well as like the whole forest aesthetic. It was nicely treated, and I was happy that it is going to be a full circle of that. And we also get a fantasy of the desert. It was nice seeing their desert clothes, a kind of a throwback to for the episodes it's been like Home Sweet Home and the Heat Wave in a way. It's pretty clever. It's a bit witty humor, and I was happy with that. Then we get a dog sled fantasy sequence similar to the Blizzard and a crossing the Antarctic, but this time Phil and Lil, of course, are human form. I do really like how these fantasy sequences are all coming together to help them go all over the place and make Angelica be kind and altruistic. It's a pretty neat premise. I like seeing all the animals on the way. And eventually, in the meantime, Charlotte, with the assistance of Jonathan, finds a replacement vase, while Stu and Drew have their final argument, if they've ever had one. Eventually, the babies go on this boat ride across the sea. Angelica's still helping them, going to the beach. It's another throwback to some of those fantasy sequences. And eventually, after Jonathan helps them get the vase, the babies are able to find that last piece with Angelica's help. She finally admits their connection. Kimmy's grandparents, and thus Kira's parents, finally arrive. And I have to say, I'm amazed how young they look. As a bunch of the people are saying, they don't look a day over 40. I'm not quite sure how young they were when they had Kira, but that leaves it to the imagination. And I do like how they decorate the yard with that Japanese bridge and that little house area. It's pretty cute. Now we're going on to a very fun sequence. Is when I just skipped over a little bit, when they're humming the theme song to help Angelica find them in that storm of the flower petals. It was gorgeously made. It was a very, very fun throwback. Them singing the song was so adorable. And that unveil of the fox that looks somewhat like Spike was also pretty cute. And when they see the vase, Kira ultimately decides, as the babies collected all the pieces, they should let that old vase be the one. It's more symbolic that way, because sometimes it's the thing that go wrong that makes something like this more memorable and worth having. So eventually the wedding is on. Everyone looks in awe as Kira walks down in her beautiful kimono with Kimmy leading in the flower petals. She doesn't have to say a word as she holds Chaz's hands as Grandpa Lou announces them as a wedded couple, and Chucky and Kimmy smile at the new family. And at the end, everyone is very pleased with what's happened, and a very interesting reveal comes out. Lou and Celeste are moving away, so that means the house is all for Stu and Dee Dee. They are amazed by this, and it finally confirms what a lot of people speculated. The house is indeed Lou's, but now Stu really does own it. And as the camera records everyone celebrating and appreciating themselves over what the wedding happened, Linda and the delivery man end up hitting it off. His name is Taxton, by the way. And finally, the babies eat their cake in another full circle to the second movie, and they have a happy ending. This was totally worth my time. I was pretty happy that this reboot got a finale after all, despite all the mistreatment. It's decent as a TV special, but I feel the pacing would have been far worse had it been a movie. But I'm pretty happy for what we got. It's an 8 out of 10. It's a cute finale for a cute reboot. It's got issues, don't get me wrong, but I'm pretty happy how well the writers banded together to recreate this story for this generation. I'm sure you guys probably have a lot to say about this finale, considering how much it might water down what the original had. But I will say it's better as a TV movie rather than an actual theatrical one. Comparing 80 minutes to 44 minutes is somewhat dishonest, but I understand why things were how they need to be. So that's all I have to say about this finale. Hello. We're looking at this on the anniversary of the special in question. We got a bit of a schedule. I just wanted to show it because I wanted to tell you how long this project's been in development. And we got Wild Doorways. Here's the first a-thon for Rugrats. And I recognize pretty much all these episodes. And they redid this marathon in November 2003 for the actual premiere of the spin-off, but we're going to see what the original thing was like in a moment. And here it is, the backdoor pilot, the 10th anniversary special, the documentary, and Brothers Garcia thing that was just there to fill airtime despite being a new one. And we got differences. They replaced Rocket Power, but sadly Runaway Reptar was not included here. And got all these. Altiek was the you got a lot of people to praise. Fry. Yeah, Altiek, it was great. And let's see the actual images. Got them watching the special, them fearing Angelica, she's threatening them confronting, that thumbs up, Chucky, stealing the necklace, Spike, Angelica at the party, them about to go, they go out, the dance, seeing the stars, singing on stage, and then that's the end. It could have been better, but I'm glad that the legacy of the reboot is here because I think it's time for us to overshadow what was wrong and everything else. Glad that a lot of people saw it and a lot of people are going to take a look at what could have been better and what the reboot improves on the original, and especially All Grown Up, because despite having a lot of ginger writers and animators, it just could not compete. The episodic structure really hindered it, and you know what? I'm glad things are changed. I wonder which of you watching this video actually saw the premiere. Let me know. And let me know what your connection is to it and how you feel about the reboot. Well, I reviewed the whole season, and again, I have some mixed feelings about this. On one hand, there's a lot of derivative nature in this spin off or reboot, whatever you want to call it. But on the other hand, I had fun. I had fun revisiting good memories. I had fun seeing the new voice cast and the new animation collide. I had fun with the community that I was part of when we were watching this. I will say, at the end of the day, I don't regret it. I do not regret it. It was a reboot that actually got a finale. It had good lessons and moralistic values and opportunistic aesthetics. It was worth my time. Those 2-year wait was insane, but I'm glad it's over. Now, I don't know what's to come next. I might end up putting a compilation every now and then on my channel, but things are going to be winding down. I'm looking for a job right now. Hopefully I'm this close to getting it, but I'm really hoping everything else goes my way. But what do you guys think is going to happen for your channels? Are you going to be reviewing more stuff? Are you going to be having new collections of some kind? Do you guys think there's going to be a new kind of methodology and collaboration with other YouTubers? But right now, I have no idea what's going to happen with the Rugrats reboot and its distribution, because it's not going to be on Paramount Plus. I don't think it's going to be released on DVD in the States. No idea. But I really hope this could be treated well, because Screwed by the Network is not what we want, and this Warner Brothers and Paramount merger is so stressful. We don't want a monopoly like that. I mean, we still got Coyote versus Acme to see. We still got other physical media to collect. We still got a lot of new people to meet and thank for it. The actors, the animators, the writers, even some of the producers and assistant directors, and the overall animation directors. So hopefully we're going to get some things good out of this. But yeah, as I'm saying, I think I'm going to close my channel by the end of the year. I'm really low on Steam, and I'm looking for a job at this point, and I know this channel has helped me in a lot of ways, and eventually I've come to realize I no longer really need it. I have all the tools in my toolkit elsewhere, but it's important to realize how this helped me, and it's helped me pretty well with communicating with people, sharing interest, and having good games. And probably I'm going to connect with some people via email, or maybe once in a while I'll talk to them on the phone or whatever. But as of right now, I feel like it will be good to end my channel by the end of the year. It's just a good send-off for a chapter of my life, and for the past 8 years, it's been worth it. 8 years flies by quickly, and I'm proud. So, thank you for watching this. It was not the best video that I could have made, but I'm just happy I did what I did. Thank you.